Hello, welcome to Bordeaux. These are very exciting times here as we uncover, discover, taste more and more of the wines from the new 2022 vintage. We're confronted with weather change for several years now, and 2022 was no exception. With a very mild winter, we were faced with very dry, very warm, going to extreme heat throughout the season. This had as consequence a very early harvest. For the whites it started mid-August, and for the reds it was the first days of September. And it also resulted with a drought and lack of rain in a very small quantity. And we are about 11% down on a normal vintage. The result in the wines is quite extraordinary. We have whites that are fresh, that are crispy, that are expressive. We have roses full of flavour, a nice light colour, and the reds that are absolutely extraordinary, showing a lot of depth, lovely round silky tannins and a lot of fruit. And these are absolutely delightful wines, and we look forward to showing them to you. These extreme weather conditions with this drought and especially very high temperatures led to some worry. And it's a very pleasant surprise to see how fresh those wines generated by the 22 vintage are. And the technicians, with hindsight now, are wondering, how do we make such exciting wines in such extreme weather conditions? The answer seems to lie in the fact that the vine actually adapted to the drought and to the high temperatures, because the whole phenomenon started very early, starting in February, where temperatures were higher than average, and rainfall was lower systematically every month except for June, which was a little higher, and that was actually beneficial. And so the vine adapted to that drought, the lack of water and excessive heat, and managed to adapt and produce this great fruit. Of course, this is very encouraging for Bordeaux. We've been confronted with the consequences of weather change for some years now. Very difficult to combat extreme and violent episodes such as hailstorms. But when it's that progressive and the vine is able to adapt, then it's very reassuring for the future, especially for the Merlot grape variety. We're not, of course, just hoping that the vineyard will adapt. An awful lot of work is undertaken to endeavour to help the vineyard and cultivate the vineyard in a way that helps it adapt to these new weather conditions. Canopy management is one thing. 20 years ago we were trying to increase the surface of the foliage to increase photosynthesis and increase the vine's capacity to ripen the grapes. Now we're reducing canopy size. Of course, everything that we used to do in terms of de-leafing is much less engaged now. We like to keep the leaves to protect the grapes from excessive sun rays. Delaying pruning is another technique that's used, and that helps us combat early budding and hope that then we'll be out of reach of late frosts. Agroforestry is developing massively in Bordeaux, and all these new experiments, new techniques that progressively are growing in usage. On the longer term basis, a lot of research is undertaken here locally in Bordeaux to identify maybe new grape varieties that would be better suited to extreme heat, to extreme drought, to producing less sugar and less alcohol. This is a program that's now been undertaken for 20 years and producing its first results. It's identifying those grape varieties that do have interesting characteristics to adapt to climate change. Then it's also adapting the regulation. And we have the Bordeaux Supérieur that has now integrated in its rule book 7 new grape varieties that can be used to produce AOC Bordeaux wines.